Okay, the great Canadian renewal, mortgage renewal debate is ramping up again. I'm seeing a lot more posts about it. We're seeing a few articles in the mainstream media. And what's it all about? Okay, about 60% of all the mortgages in Canada will go through a renewal in 2025, which is soon. It's November, so it's coming soon. In 2025 and 2026, 60%, a huge number. So the discussion is always the same. All of these people will pay more. Their payments will go up. Is that really true? Well, not so much in 2026. In 2026, we're actually running into some people who took 3-year mortgages in 2023, and those were very high rates. They will actually pay, they were in the sixes. So those people will actually pay slightly less. So that's a consideration. But it's a whole big mix. Bottom line is it going to be a crisis? I mean, that's the thing you read in the mainstream media. That's the stuff you see online. Is it going to be a crisis? The correct answer is probably not. However, it's going to be painful as hell for some people. It's going to probably be a crisis for a tiny number of people. And it sure as shit is probably going to throttle back the economy just a little bit more. So let's dig in. So there's a whole bunch of people who signed up for 5-year, biggest mortgage Christmas. The biggest year of mortgage origination in Canada was 2021. The biggest. It was like mortgage brokers were going out and getting Lamborghinis, and they were riding high. High, I'm telling you. Everybody was riding high. 2021, mortgage Christmas. Not me. I wouldn't even fit in a fucking Lamborghini, but that's what happened. It was just the biggest mortgage year in history. And then, of course, things slowed down drastically by the second quarter of 2022, and then the shit hit the fan in the second half of the year, and 2023 was awful. But in those people who got fixed rate and variable rate mortgages, I'll touch on the variable rate in a second, but people who got mortgages in the 2021, some of the fixed rates were super low. Crazy low. I think I did a $3 million mortgage for 1.59. 1.59 fixed for 5 years. Whoa. We did a few variable rate mortgages at the absolute height of the boom for 109, 0.99, 1.19. That is just oh shit, that is so low. Now, obviously, we're talking about the fixed rates coming up. If you're coming off 1.79, 1.69, 1.99, and you're going to hit 2025 and 2026, that's going to be startling. You're going to pay somewhere in either the very high threes, mid fours. I can't predict what it's going to be in 2026, but let's just assume. Now, is that a huge increase in payment? Okay, yes, it is. It's big. It's about 20%, ranges between 18 to 26. Well, right, Ron, that's crazy. The rate almost doubled. Okay, remember, it's amortizing. It's an amortizing mortgage. And at 1.79, you paid off a shit ton of principal. Your mortgage shrank dramatically. Some mortgages shrank 22% from their starting point, some more. So it's a smaller mortgage, and even though it's a much higher rate, it's still amortizing. A portion of all that money that you were paying for the first 5 years was going to interest. So big chunk, huge chunk. And so the interest goes up. The total payment does go up, but the interest portion goes up the most. So in reality, if you have a double rate or a rate that's 2.5 times, you don't have a 2.5 times payment increase. That's just the way amortization works in a mortgage. So it's a big jump. That's a big jump. Now, note of caution here. Remember, we actually have had an experiment running for the last 3 years about people who took out a variable rate. Now, for most banks, there was they had sort of a fixed static pay variable so that you had an increase in your interest, but not necessarily your payment. Then a lot of people had a trigger rate and they had their payments increase. But hear me out. Some people, the people at Scotiabank and National Bank of Canada, their payments went up from on a 1.45 basis all the way up to 6.45. And in some cases, those payments went up 80%. Some people locked in to try to get a little bit better rate. Some people did sell their house, regrettably. But mostly they're all still there. Like, they're all still there, which just speaks to the fact that the stress test worked. The stress test added 2%, or in the case of variable, almost 3.5%, to a rate when we tested people's income to make sure it would work in the future. So it did work. That's great. But it also shows you the resilience of the borrower. So as long as people have their jobs, they can, in many, many cases, adjust their lifestyle to make sure the mortgage gets paid. Canadians are proven to be fabulous, fabulous payers of mortgages until they lose their job. Then nothing works. If you're unemployed and that income is missing, you could have no change in the mortgage rate and you're in trouble. That's the reality. Employment is the biggest factor in mortgage delinquency, mortgage default. Okay, so what will really happen? This is what I believe will happen. People's payments will go up. They will go up, as I mentioned earlier. They will go up, some cases 18%, 21%, 22%. Some people will have this odd experience of having one of these static payment variables, and they've been paying the same thing for a very long time, and then they haven't paid anything off. Remember, I pointed out on the fixed rate mortgages, people took out very low rates. They paid a ton off. That's not true about the people at TD, people at CIBC, people at BMO. Their mortgages may have grown. Their payments didn't change much, and now they're faced with much higher payments. That is the group that could experience the most payment shock. But remember, people have had 3 or 5 years to make more money, to prepare, and to look at what's going to happen for quite a while. So am I saying, is it going to be an absolute disaster? For a few people, it will be, for a tiny number. But for the whole group, it's just going to be a range of bad news and ridiculous belt tightening to, okay, we'll get through this. But to the economy, to the Canadian economy in 2025 and 26, that's all those millions of households who are paying more on their mortgage and in reality did not have enough of an increase in income to just carry on their lives. They've got to cut back somewhere. And that further squeezes the Canadian economy for the next 2 years.